After completing my 10th class exams in 1979, my father suggested that I go and help my father's uncle and learn astrology. Mathematics being my favorite subject, I learned the calculations. My grandfather taught me how to calculate the inclinations of each planet and how to calculate the lagna and the meridian center MC, and he gave me some birth charts to draw. Thus, I learned how to draw the birth charts first and showed interest in predictions. So, my grandfather told me some predictions, some of the tips that he usually uses for predictions. And after learning those tips, I documented some of them. I verified with my father. While my father and my grandfather have laid the foundation for me to get interested in astrology, for almost a decade or 2 decades, I didn't show any interest. Welcome to Shasikara's astrological series. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about the some of the one of the planetary combination that is unique seen in right now, starting 29th March 2020 and ending in say like 26th or 27th June 2020. It's approximately 3 months of the April, May, June, 3 months of the this unique combinations. So what I'm trying to do is to take the planetary combinations and see what is the impact on United States of America. In right now, this is April 9th. uh, in United States, the current coronavirus has a major impact on its economy, and as of 9th April 2020, the unemployment rate has rose from 3% to almost 13%, and it's approximately, according to today April 9th morning news, there were almost 16 million Americans who had signed for unemployment benefits. So now, with the economy shut down for more than 3 weeks, and the impact is tremendous if it keeps continuing. Astrologically speaking, the reason why this particular impact, the country, almost many of the countries had this type of an impact, of which I am emphasizing on United States right now, is precisely started on 28th of March when transit Jupiter entered Capricorn. And already in Capricorn on 29th of March, already in Capricorn there is transit Saturn and transit Mars are already residing, and transit Jupiter entered Capricorn on 28th March. Starting March 29th, 2020, in Capricorn there are now three transit planets: Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars. So I noticed that there are three possibilities. First of all, from 30th March till 4th May, transit Mars, transit Jupiter, and transit Saturn, all the three will be in Capricorn. And that's the first thing. The second possibility is planetary combination is, while these three planets are in Capricorn, the transit moon is on 13th April, 13th, 14th, 15th, and possibly even 16th April. That means today is 9th April. So 4 days from now onwards, from 13th April till 16th April, transit moon will be in Capricorn. Usually moon will be 2.5 days to roughly 3 days plus or minus. So transit moon is going to cojoin with the transit Mars, transit Jupiter, and transit Saturn during these 3 days, 13th April to 16th April. And then probably after 4th May, when transit Mars leaves Capricorn, from 4th May till 12th of May, just so Jupiter and Saturn will be in Capricorn, and again moon will come one more time. Actually moon will come twice. Once on between 12th May and 15th May, those 3 days, will come again to Capricorn and then cojoin with Jupiter and Saturn. That's the first time. And the second time, transit moon will come again into Capricorn on 9th and 10th of June. So basically, transit moon is going to be in Capricorn 3 times in these 3 months, of which one of them is co-joining with transit Mars, transit Jupiter and transit Saturn, and 2 times co-joining with transit Saturn and transit Jupiter only. So let's now start analyzing the birth chart of the United States of America. The birth date was July 4th, 1776. First and the foremost, what you see is the Rashi Lagna is Scorpio, Chandra Lagna is Aquarius. That means moon is residing in the house owned by Saturn. So since I'm talking about the transit planets impact, generally I look at the Chandra transit planet positions from the Chandra Lagna only. Since moon is in Aquarius, Capricorn becomes the 12th house from moon. Remember, transit Saturn entered this 12th house somewhere in January of 2020 or something like that. That means the whole country is going through Shade Shani. It started in January 2020 and it will go for 7.5 years. Just like we humans have the Shade Shani, Elnati Shani or Shade Shani, the country also just entered into the period of Shade Shani. This is the very most important thing that we need to keep in mind, because the impact on the country and the people residing in the country all depends on the impact of the Shade Shani. The second thing, the most important planetary combination that has happened already on 26th or 27th of March 2020 is transit Jupiter, transit Saturn and transit Mars. All the three are in 12th house from natal moon. So since number one, the sedation is going on, and number two, it's a 12th house is nothing but hospitalization or places of cure, the impact will be clearly visible in that particular bhava or characteristic, which is the place of cure or mokshasthanam if it's a human being, or a place of cure for the country. The place of cures is nothing but hospitalizations. And from 12th house, these three planets are having a direct impact on the 6th house, which is Rogasthanamo for humans. And when you look at the country, when you're looking at the chart of a country, the 6th house deals with the diseases and public health. The most important is the public health for the country. And the public health and diseases are directly related to the 12th house, which is place of cure or hospitalizations. So the three important planets are now directly looking at the 6th house from natal moon, which is the Rogasthanamo. And if you look at the 6th house for this current for United States, the most important planet that is worrisome is Rahu. So whenever remember transit Saturn once in 29 years comes to Capricorn. Okay, so every 29 years the country will be having some public health crisis, and that public health crisis is due to a disease that is unknown. Either the disease is not known or the disease is known but the cure is unknown. This is just because of Rahu. And then the next thing you have to see is who has joined with Rahu in the 6th house from natal moon. It is the 8th house lord Mercury. So from natal moon for the country, the 6th house, in the 6th house, Rahu and the 8th house lord has co-joined. Rahu and the 8th house lord is having a direct aspect on the 12th house, and once in every 29 years they will be having a direct aspect on transit Saturn. That happened in January 2020. So transit Saturn, transit Jupiter and transit Mars, all the three are looking at Rahu plus the 8th house lord. This is very important before we move forward with the impact of these three transit planets on the country. The baselines tells you that whatever happens, the public health or the diseases, the public health will be leading to hospitalizations with high possibility for death of the public, more people dying. And then Rahu, because of Rahu, the disease is either an unknown disease or a known disease with no cure, or a disease that everybody knows it what it is, but there is no cure for that disease during the period that Saturn is residing in Capricorn. This is the rough we tell. And then comes between, there is a possibility, one more possibility is that transit moon will be coming to Capricorn once in every 30 days. Yeah, once in every 26 to 30 days. So once in every 26 to 30 days, transit moon is going to come to Capricorn. That means transit moon is going to touch transit Saturn, transit Mars, and transit Jupiter. This time, when between 30th March to May 4th, transit moon is going to touch transit these three other transit planets in the 12th house. Remember, the country is already going through the Shade Shani, and now we have the transit moon residing in the 12th house and have co-joining with these three malefic planets, and then having a direct aspect on the 6th house where you have Rahu plus the 8th house lord. So this, from 30th March to 4th May, this is what you will be noticing in the country. The biggest point is the country will have inside the country, the public health will become a biggest challenge for the country. Hospitals will be overwhelmed, and the disease that has been going in the country will be either known and the cure is unknown, and nobody knows what is the cure for the disease, or the disease itself is a strange disease and nobody knows what that particular disease is. So now let's start picking up the birth chart for the United States, and then see how is it working over with these transit planets. First and the foremost, what I did was I picked up the transit moon, because it's a transit moon that is going to join with the three other important planets: transit Mars, transit Jupiter, and transit April. Transit moon is going to join transit these three transit planets approximately on or before April 13th, and from there it will be going all the way till 16th. I will just say around 15th or 16th of April. That means for 2.5 to 3 days transit moon is going to be in Capricorn. So along with the three important transit planets, transit moon is also going to have a direct aspect on the 6th house from natal moon. If you look at it, the 6th house from natal moon is owned by moon itself. It's the own house. That means transit moon is going to look at its own house, and moon itself being the 6th house lord. This is the very important point to note, because this is the time. See, when the 6th house lord is residing in the 12th house and having a direct aspect on the 6th house, its own house, then the impact for the 6th house will be highly visible, and the impact on the 12th house is around 50 to 70% of it. So the 6th house impact is public health and diseases, which will be extremely highly visible from 13th April to 16th April. And because of these diseases and the issues with the public health, the impact on the hospitals will be very high, which is the 12th house. And in the same 12th house, you have the Mars, which tells you that the unrest or the disobedience or the chaos in the hospital environment will be extremely high. The second thing, Mars Saturn is there, which is the Maraka planet, so the death in the hospitals will be highly noticeable. And the third one is the Jupiter. Jupiter is here from natal moon. Jupiter is the 2nd house lord, which is another Maraka Sthanadipati. So Saturn is the Maraka planet and the 1st house lord from natal moon. Jupiter is the Maraka Sthanadipati, and these two planets have co-joined with a Mars in Capricorn in the 12th house. So from 13th to 16th April, in United States, two things are guaranteed or very high possibility to happen is the increase in the diseases, the impact on the public health, and highly visible stress or chaos in hospital in a place of cure environment, which is hospitals or hospital environment, and then more deaths in the hospital in the after being hospitalized. So this is why I was emphasizing that this is the period from 13th April to 16th April is extremely important for this country, for United States. We have explained, I have explained to you the impact from transit moon on the United States chart, especially during between 13th April to 16th of April. That's the time when the transit moon joins with transit Mars, transit Jupiter, and transit Saturn. Now, this is the second one. I'll repeat the same transit moon. What will be the impact when it in again in the third week of May and the first week of June 2020 later. But now let me go to transit Saturn. Transit Saturn here, even though it stays all the way for 2.5 years until June 2022, I'm just picking up the impact of transit Saturn on United States only until June 2020. The reason is that is the time until approximately June or July of 2020. Until that point, it co-joins with transit Jupiter. That's the reason why I picked it up. And now transit Saturn is in Capricorn, which is the 12th house from natal moon. So from Capricorn, the third aspect of transit Saturn is on the second house from natal moon. So the whole period, as long as transit Saturn is in Capricorn, that is until June 2022, 2.5 years, which is the first phase of the Sadeshini for the country, for the United States. This transit Saturn is having a third aspect on the second house from natal moon, and since for a country, for people, second house is called Dhanasthanamu and Kutumbasthanamu. But when it comes to the country, it deals with revenue, the stock exchange, the banking, and the trading partners. We call it as a trading partners. So transit Saturn's third aspect is now on the second house since January of 2020, and I'm sure people who had noticed how the ups and downs in the stock market, the United States stock market, this how all of a sudden it goes up, all of a sudden the Dow Jones points goes south, they lose it, and there was a point where from 23,000 the Dow Jones ratings from 23,000 in United States, it dropped all the way to 17 or 18,000, and again for no specific reason it jumped back to 23,000. So you see this chaotic period is in the stock market is because of this transit Saturn's third aspect is on the second house from natal moon. Also the same chaotic pattern you see in the banking sector in United States. You see the trade wars in United States, and of course revenue, that is the not the surplus, what is the deficit. The deficit in the United States budget is so high that is directly related to the revenue. So you people who are in the United States are also already noticed, and who are listening to the business side of the financial markets in United States have already noticed that from January 2020 this particular impact, Saturn's third impact on the moon, second house from moon, is already been visible. Now there comes is transit Saturn's 10th aspect. Transit Saturn's 10th aspect is on the ninth house from natal moon. Yeah, is the ninth house from natal moon. So the ninth house for us, it is called Dharmasthanamu and Bhagyasthanamu, and that exactly means what I meant to say is that Dharmasthanamu is for humans, but when you come to a country, it will be law and order and courts. So the ninth house from Chandra Lagna, uh, natal Saturn is in the eighth house. So according to the BSP rule, it has to spoil the house next to his residence, which is the ninth house from natal moon. So natal Saturn is already spoiled the ninth house by default. For the whole United States, the ninth house has been spoiled. So that's the reason why you see so many peculiar things happening in the law and in the courts in the country. And then we transit Saturn's 10th aspect again on the ninth house starting January 2020. That particular impact is now extremely highly visible. So the question comes is, what are we going to see exclusively until June 2020, when this transit Saturn is co-joined with transit Jupiter and partially with transit Mars and partially with for 2 or 3 days a month with transit moon. The first thing, as I said earlier, the impact will be on the ninth house. That means there are a lot of actions that are unethical or that are against the dharma is sure to happen in the country. And because of this third aspect, the negative impact on revenue, banking sector and trading partners is highly visible. This is the Saturn overall, but with Jupiter having co-joined it, the impact is now much more higher on the revenue part of it, on the revenue of the country, banking and trading sectors, because natal Jupiter is the second house lord from natal moon. So when transit Saturn is looking at the second house, it is looking at the house owner. The second house and the house owner Jupiter is co-joined with transit Saturn, and they both are residing in the house owned by Saturn. So naturally, the Jupiter's impact on the negative impact on the house owned by Jupiter will be highly visible during this period. That means at least until June 2020, you can see in the United States, the stock market bouncing up and down, the trading having some sort of a uncertainty with the trading partners, the revenue come going south. I mean to say that there will be not much revenue for the government, and the government has to find out another different ways to increase their revenue. After completing that transit Saturn's impact on this particular chart, specifically until June 2020, I moved on to transit Mars. Transit Mars is not going to stay for a long time in Capricorn. It's just between 30th March and 4th May. That's hardly 1 month. So in this 1 month, transit Mars is going to co-join with transit Saturn and transit Jupiter in Capricorn. So transit Mars is now in the 12th house from natal moon, and it is having a direct aspect on the 6th house where Rahu and the 8th house lord Mercury are residing. So when Mars, the violent planet, is having a direct aspect on the 6th house, by default it uh, indicates that uh, the diseases and the public health for a country, since we are looking at the chart of the country, the diseases and the public health will reach to a much violent phase, in the sense like the public will be having some sort of a uh, chaos in the public environment, and that results because of the diseases and the not proper care has been taken in the hospitals, which is the 12th house here. And so let's now start looking at the aspects of the transit Mars. Transit Mars, usually Mars has the fourth aspect. So from Capricorn, the fourth aspect is on the third house from natal moon, which is Aries or Mesha. That house is owned by Mars itself. So transit Mars residing in the 12th house co-joined with transit Saturn and transit Jupiter is now having its fourth aspect on the house it owns, which is the third house from natal moon. Uh, for the country, when you look at that country's chart, third house indicates transportation industry. So the transportation industry, in the sense like automobile manufacturers or any industries, mom and pop, small industries, small scale industries that are directly related to automobile industry manufacturers will also be considered under this, under the umbrella of transportation industry. So the immediate impact that you will see between 30th March and 4th May is on the transportation industry, and more specifically the here automobile, or since the transportation also is due to ships and air transport is also is part of the transportation industry, you will be seeing the ground, air and water, all the transportations that are done through the three different paths, ground, air and water, will have a major impact. The impact will be something that has a direct relationship to the revenue lossage, or the impact might be something that has an economic impact for the whole industry or the company itself. Also, transits Mars 7th aspect, the direct aspect, is on the 6th house. We know how it is going to happen. The next one is transit Mars will have additional aspect, that's the 8th, on the 8th house from its position, which is the 7th house from natal moon. So transit Mars residing in Capricorn is now looking at the 7th house from natal moon, which is owned by Sun. Sun indicates the leader, and the 7th house indicates foreign relations, international disputes and war. So since Mars is looking at the fourth aspect on the third house that pertains to transportation industry, and Mars is looking at the direct on the sixth house that pertains to disease and public health, and now Mars is also looking at the seventh house from natal moon, which deals with foreign relationships, international disputes and war. This clearly tells you that between March 30th and 4th May, the because Sun owns that particular house, which indicates the leader, so there is a high possibility for the leader to get involved in some sort of a international disputes, or have a strain with foreign countries, and that means the relationship between the country America and the foreign countries will be having some sort of a it gets worsened. And already since January, if I remember correctly, since January there is already some sort of a trade war going on, which has an impact on the second house revenues, and now with Mars entering in March, that particular trade war will get further escalated into international disputes. So as long as until May 4th, when Mars is residing here, the major, apart from the diseases and the public health issues and other loss of revenue and all those things, these are some additional issues that you will be seeing that the country will be facing, which is for the rupture in foreign relationship, and there's a possibility for new international disputes, which probably 99.9% is a trade war, because of the trade being, the transportation industry had a major impact. The war that this whatever the issues, that international disputes that America is going to have, will be directly related somehow or the other, will be related to the trading part with that particular country, resulting into a trade wars. The last transit planet that I'm going to do the analysis for the impact on the United States is transit Jupiter. Transit Jupiter is going to stay. I'm going to look at it only until the end of June 2020, because after that transit Jupiter will retrograde and go back to the previous house, which is Sagittarius. So until June 2020, transit Jupiter is going to stay in Capricorn, whether it is a forward motion or a retrograde motion, but it is going to be there. So now let's start looking at Jupiter. We know Jupiter owns the second house from natal moon, which is a revenue, stock exchange and banking and trade. So transit Jupiter, since it has co-joined with transit Saturn and transit Mars in the 12th house, and which is the Shadeshani period, start of the Shadeshani period, because of that the country will be having will see a negative impact pertaining to the second house from natal moon. That's the house which Jupiter owns it. Now let's go and look at the aspects of Jupiter. transit Jupiter, I mean to say that. Transit Jupiter, fifth aspect. We'll start with the fifth aspect. The fifth aspect is on the fourth house from natal moon. The fourth house is owned by Venus. So now let's see. For a country, the fourth house deals is pertains to indicates weather and agriculture. Now until June, fortunately until June, in America, United States, it's not the hurricane season. That's the very advantageous part of it is there will be no weather, hurricanes or thunderstorms, uh, hurricanes or whatever call it as typhoons, all those things. There is no possibility until June because the weather does not allow it to happen. So that's one advantage. So the only way the transit Jupiter can have a negative impact on the country is in agriculture. We have already seen how transit Saturn and transit Mars had impacted the other parts of it. All those impacts, the core, there will be some sort of a the impact will be on agriculture. Because of that, the country has been locked down. The farmers are not able to produce the commodities. That means agriculture has a major hit on it on because of that, because of this lockdown, coronavirus and other stuffs in the country. Agriculture got a major hit. The farmers are not able to produce any vegetables or any food products, and at the end what happens is because there is no enough food being produced, the cost of the food products will rise up, and there is the demand increases for the food products so high that it will become another problem for the common people to get the regular food. And now the second thing is transit Jupiter's. We know the 7 direct aspect is on the sixth house, so I already told it. So let's go to the transit Jupiter's ninth aspect, which is the eighth house from natal moon. Oh gosh, eighth house for a country. Eighth house talks about the treasury, the debts, and that too not just the death, large scale losses. Now from natal moon in the eighth house, what you see is natal Saturn already residing there. The Lagnadipati for Chandra Lagna is already in the eighth house. So by default, these things are sure to happen. Now the question comes is when will it happen? This happens the state treasury, large scale of death, all these things only happen when transit Saturn, once in 29 years, when transit Saturn is in the 12th house. And then when it happens once in 29 years as soon as transit as Saturn enters the Capricorn, and it will stay for 7.5 years from that point onwards, because the 7.5 years is the Sadeshani period for the country. So the transit Saturn entered Capricorn in January 2020. Transit Jupiter now is having a ninth aspect on the 8th house from natal moon where natal Saturn is residing. So whatever the impact that is going to happen with respect to the 6th house, the 12th house, the 2nd house, and of course the fourth house, which is the agriculture, is now going to have an impact on the 8th house, which is directly indicates that there will be some negative impact on the state treasury, and there will be large scale of losses, and some of these losses might be people loss of people or death. So this is something that as long as transit Jupiter is in Capricorn, the possibility is very high, which is until June of 2020.